Hey, welcome back to Rider Race. We're looking at where is the teaching from Malachi chapter 2. Today we're in verses 8 through 9. So we're coming to the end of our study this week. I have a little bit on this, not too much, but you see in 8 through 9 that the priests were corrupted and now they've been cast aside. So, as each generation came and went, the priesthood did what was right in their own eyes, like everyone else, right? You read through Judges, you read to the First Samuel, it documents some of the priests that caused many to stumble by their instruction. You see stories in there of priests, and they were dirty, they were dishonoring God in lots of different ways. They were not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And frankly, some of their sins were quite disgusting and caused many to participate in sin with them. Instead of rebuking people and correcting, they were sinning and then inviting other people into their sin. The majority of the priests neither rebuked nor corrected. In some places, the priests instigated sinfulness. Take the sons of Eli, for instance. They stole from the sacrifice. They engaged in immoral sexual relationships. The Bible records that the sons of Eli were worthless men. They did not know the Lord, it says. They were not followers of God, and yet they were priests to God. So when you get to the time of the prophets, before the exile, the priests were decadent. They indulged, right? They were all about extravagance, a big show for the Lord. They would put the biggest, church extravaganza we have with the lasers and smoke machines and all that kind of stuff. They would put that to shame. But it was all the show. They had nothing. There's no substance there. It was just to make the people happy, make them feel good about themselves. The priests were decadent. They were making money. They had these huge platforms. Eli was fat and happy. He had everything he wanted. He had free lodging. He had everything. Didn't have to work for anything. And his sons were worthless men. It sounds pretty familiar about the state of evangelical church today. You got a bunch of pastors sitting around. They don't have to work. They don't have to worry about anything. They got the laser show. They got, money all over the place. They're living in, multi-million-dollar homes and driving the best cars, wearing the best shoes. That's what they do. So it really hasn't changed too much, unfortunately. We still have to worry about that today. Lots of people fall in that same trap. But the thing about it is, after the exile, though, and during Malachi's time, what Malachi is addressing, the priests were cheap, and they robbed God of what was commanded. So they were like, you don't have to give that. You don't have to do the show. Just do it as cheaply as possible. Don't worry about excellence. Don't worry about that. It's okay. God will take whatever you give to him. It doesn't really matter what you give to him. So on the other side of the exile, now you have people just like, whatever, if you call it worship, it's got to be worship. And so that's what they were doing. And it's really sad because it just messed up a bunch of people. So the priests were doing what was evil in the sight of God. So by their evil, they corrupted the covenant of Levi. The covenant would have continued. The promises to Levi would have stood because God always keeps his side of the covenant. God would have kept that covenant, but God does not change. And so from his side, it was fine. But they broke covenant with God. They did not serve him the way they were supposed to. And so there's consequences for that. And God had laid that out already to them. He says that you show partiality, and that's what he accuses them of. Because of their behavior and turning aside from the way God promised to make, he promised to make them despised and abased before all the people. So he says, you're going to be nothing because of the way you're acting. Not only am I going to curse your blessings, but you're going to be despised by the people. People are going to hate you. They're not going to want you anymore. No longer would they be the ones to whom you would go to seek instruction, but they would be hated. No longer would they walk in peace and uprightness and have their favored status, but they would be made low. God accuses them of partiality here in the way they taught the law. They'd apply it one way and apply it a different way for other people. and they would apply it the way they wanted to, instead of saying, well, the Bible or God says, the scriptures say, because it was written down at that point, that when you bring a sacrifice, it has to be perfect. Yeah, don't worry about it. You're good. So they would show partiality towards the law. Like, you can't do that. You don't have the right to do that. But that's what they were doing. So they didn't show equity in the law, and maybe they were like, okay, you get to do this. You can bring this wacky animal, and you can bring this piece of roadkill. It's good, but you need to bring a spotless lamb. So they might have been doing some of that stuff too, or they were applying it differently to different people as well. However, they were showing inequity. That's what they were doing. And so they were supposed to show equity in the law. They were supposed to follow the statutes, apply them equally to all people, and the statutes that God established, but they were just working the law to their advantage. And so they would show partiality so they could get what they want, which is a horrible thing to do, and which, unfortunately, some preachers do today. They use God's word to get money. They apply it in ways that are not lawful, that are not good, just so they can get money and power. It's sad to see, but it's the truth. So we need to watch out for that. You go to a church that like that, then you need to get away from there. Find a pastor who is not trying to fleece you, who's got a giant house and is and you're poor. Think about those things. There's some impartialness there. It shouldn't be where your pastor has a golden toilet and you're giving your last 2 mites to survive. So, but there needs to be a following through of what the Bible actually says. That's what needs to happen. So we'll end there, because I can go off on a whole tangent with that, but I'll stop there. And next time we'll conclude our study and apply this to ourselves.